Clearly, Chairman Comer's investigation is now striking a nerve at the White House, and they're now lashing out. First, they were lashing out on this about this program on Monday about Kevin McCarthy. Now they're lashing out at James Comer today, and he's on our program to respond right now. They're claiming his report is old news that does nothing to implicate the big guy. He is here to respond. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, sir, how are you?
I'm well.
Old news, and you're admitting that you have not uncovered any proof implicating the president. Well, first of all, we know he lied through his teeth when he said he never talked to Hunter, his brother, or anybody else, for that matter, about these foreign business deals, and he was an active participant. Now, I have a question. Was Joe Biden the brand, or was Hunter the crack addict and frequent prostitute guy the brand? What brand was it?
It was Joe Biden's brand, and that's in the words of Devin Archer, who was also in on the schemes with Hunter Biden. I mean, there's no reason anyone would send Hunter Biden millions and millions of dollars. They did it for his father. His father was the brand. And that's the question we've been asking for a long time, and Devin Archer's the first associate that's had the opportunity to answer that question. The question is, what exactly did the Bidens do to receive that money? And the answer is Joe Biden. They provided Joe Biden. They gave these crooks, and they're all crooks. All these people that sent the Bidens money are either incarcerated or on the run from being incarcerated in the countries where they were sending the original wires from. These are bad people from bad countries that were using our government to profit through the Biden family.
All right, let me ask you this. Now that we have all this evidence that Joe Biden was up to his eyeballs here, now the question is, what are the next steps? Now, I don't think Hunter, we know he had no experience in energy, but CEFC, the Chinese energy company, was paying them a lot of money. We know that's a fact. We know that Burisma paid the money. He admitted on Good Morning America he had no experience with any of these countries or any experience in energy. So the question is, and we know he admitted that he was a drug addict at the time. Okay, what did he possibly have to offer these countries, many of which that don't like us? What service did he perform for these massive sums of money, these tens of millions of dollars? Is there anything? What is the service he provided them? And the grandchildren that got paid, what did they do to get the large sums of money they had funneled to them?
They didn't do anything. They used Joe Biden. And what we're seeing is Joe Biden actually provided things of value in return for that money. Look at Ukraine. I mean, it's becoming crystal clear that he went and fired the prosecutor who was investigating his son's corrupt energy company over there. I mean, he bragged about it. He's on tape admitting he did it. We know now from Devin Archer that the Burisma owners were putting pressure on Hunter Biden to deliver. As you said earlier, Sean, he wasn't on the board because of his expertise or his knowledge of energy. He was on the board because his last name was Biden and he had access to the vice president.
By the way, we
who had
need
access to
DC
foreign
help.
aid.
And they were begging, we need DC help. Was that Hunter in DC or Joe, the vice president in DC?
That was Joe Biden, the vice president. I don't think anyone could argue that. And you look at with the Russian, the wife of the former mayor, the Russian oligarch. Her name was left off the sanctions list. Now, that happened while he was president. But we're seeing decisions that Joe Biden made as president that's counter to every hardworking American. But you trace that back, and his family received money from some of these people that are receiving these favors, like the Russian oligarch that we highlighted in the bank memo today.
Is the country now looking at the possibility that our current president, then vice president, was involved in a bribery scandal with foreign countries, that he took, as the 1023 form alleged, that he took specific actions as vice president of this country for the enrichment of his family, the financial enrichment of his family? Do you believe that that is proven and that is what happened?
I believe that all the pieces are there, and I believe there's a pattern with Romania, with Ukraine, with Russia, with China, with Kazakhstan. I mean, you're seeing where Joe Biden communicated with these people, even though he lied about it, And you're seeing things of benefit that were delivered to these countries and these people in exchange for the money. So we're going to continue to follow the money, and we're going to get closer and closer to the Biden's bank accounts. I think we're making the case now to where we can win in court when we go after the Biden's personal accounts. Because remember, Hunter Biden complained about having to spend so much of his money on his father.
Well, I don't think these countries or these companies would pay tens of millions of dollars without expecting something pretty profound in exchange. And they got that in the case of Burisma, didn't they? All right, Congressman, great to see you. Thank you. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.